Hi, I'm John Sauvé, and this is Art and Design. Today our guest is Carol Dunitz. Maybe I should introduce you as Sarah Bernhardt.
Madame Sarah, please, or the divine Sarah.
What is the fascination with Sarah Bernhardt?
When I was a kid, they were going to tear down the Schubert Theater in Detroit. And my mother wanted me to see the auditorium before it was torn down. And, you know, somewhere in the recesses of my mind, I remember what the Schubert looked like. But what really made an impression was that last show that ran there. It was Gypsy. Within a week, I knew the score backward and forward. The dream has always been to write musicals, and for many years, I thought about doing a show about a leading lady, dramatic from the time that I flew out of the birth canal. My mother would always tell me I was a little Sarah Bernhardt. I decided to do research about her. I read close to 100 books in French and English, then proceeded to write this show. The working title was Quand même, which is French for Against All Odds. Actually, there is a song in the show. There are 12 original songs. And
that you wrote?
Absolutely. I've been writing music since I was a child. There is one song, Quand même, and it actually is the only one that reprises. Perhaps I could share a cappella one verse with you.
Absolutely.
Quand même when David slew Goliath, quand même when reason was king, quand même when Eiffel built his tower, when Orville said to Wilbur, what should we call this thing? Quand même when Christa, fair Columbus, proves the world wasn't flat. Against all odds, they're going to call me top hat. There is an original CD for the show. There it is, Bernhardt on Broadway. I promise you, every single song you can walk away humming, like Cole Porter or George Gershwin or Jerome Kern or Richard Rodgers. Very strong melody lines, and also lyrics that are kind of like Lorenz Hart or Ira Gershwin or Cole Porter. They're almost like puzzles, and you want to go back and see how all the pieces fit together.
Can you give us a profile of what Sarah Bernhardt's life was like?
She was a very remarkable woman and a product of her upbringing. She really wasn't a wanted child, and she was sent away to boarding school at some point, always striving to get her mother's love. Her true love really was the audience. At the suggestion of one of her mother's lovers, she entered the Conservatoire, which was France's famous school for gifted actors. She spent 2 years there and then moved on and was welcomed at the Comédie Française, which was the premier place. No doubt in both cases some strings were pulled. But that being said, she still did become the most famous actress of her time and the most famous woman in the world. She was known everywhere. This woman was incredibly driven. She performed roughly 150 roles during her lifetime. Hard to imagine, isn't it? In the musical, there are close to 60 famous people referenced. You can't tell her story without this. Everyone knew her, and she knew everyone who was famous, from the Tsar of Russia, who insisted on bowing to her and refusing to let her bow to him, to Houdini, who she asked if he could restore her leg that had been amputated in her early 70s. The Prince of Wales was one of her lovers.
Well, and Mark Twain actually paid her a very high compliment about her acting abilities, too.
He said there were 5 kinds of actresses: poor actresses, fair actresses, good actresses, great actresses, and then there was Sarah Bernhardt.
And for him to say that, who is snarky by today's terminology, that's a high compliment. And what was it that made her so special as an actress?
She carefully thought about you know, the lines she had, what she was saying, what the character was thinking, and how she could convey who that person was and what their thoughts were to the audience. She also brought new gestures often to a role. She actually played a number of male roles as well, one of them being Hamlet. She appeared in Hamlet at Stratford-on-Avon in England, performing in French only, as she did everywhere. She was a nice-looking woman, but not beautiful in the traditional sense, and yet she supposedly had over 1,000 proposals during her lifetime. There was something about her. She was a small woman, but something about her that was very sensual.
Well, she knew who she was.
She knew who she was, and she knew how to get the most out of it.
Yes, she did. I know you've mentioned that she performed only in French. So she was the #1 export.
No question. And when people came to Paris, when people come to Paris, they flock to see la Tour Eiffel, Notre Dame, and Madame Sarah, I have become a national institution. Before she left for her first tour of America, which was in 1880, Henry James, the famous novelist, said he had no doubt that she would be successful there because she was too American not to be successful. Now, she spoke very little English at that time. He wasn't talking about that. What he was talking about was the amazing ability she had to promote herself. She was the first one to endorse products.
Your self-promotion yourself, which is very good.
That's one of the ways that I see a definite connection.
Well, and you mentioned too that Alphonse Mucha, who did this artwork of Sarah Bernhardt, she sought him out, right?
Well, actually, she did a search for the artist who she wanted to do her posters. And she searched far and wide and finally decided on Alphonse Mucha. And he did many, many posters for her, for many of her shows. And that was his start to fame. He was an unknown before he worked with her, and then he became very, very famous.
Well, and the images of Sarah Bernhardt are what he's most noted for, and it shows his style that carried into other aspects of his artwork in the future. She understood the value of the visual image and what it would play for her.
Pamphlets that were created that were dispersed before she ever came to the United States, indicating that her favorite dish was peacock brains sautéed in butter, that she took baths in milk, that she had a human skull hanging in her study from a former lover. A lot of this stuff, in fact, perhaps all of it, was fabricated. She was very good at massaging the truth. She knew how to come up with very unusual, exciting things that piqued people's interest.
And the train cars, that's how people knew something new was coming to town. That was the mode of transportation at the time.
That's how you traveled then. The syndicate was very unhappy because she was larger than life. Everyone wanted to see Sarah Bernhardt, so they saved their money, didn't buy tickets to other things because they were waiting for her to come to town. And at some point, they actually refused to let her play in the theaters, and there was one season where she actually performed in tents.
How much of it was sensationalism and how much was people actually knowing what she was all about? Because the only way to know is to be there and see her live, because there wasn't any other media.
Well, I think just like today, I mean, today we have social media, but there was still word of mouth. And this,
which is the best kind.
She was the greatest actress in the world.
Right.
Who wouldn't want to be able to say, I saw Sarah Bernhardt? I think the big thing was that in addition to being a great actress, she knew how to promote.
Promotion's everything. She was way ahead of her time. She knew sensationalism sold, and she made it happen.
And the other thing is she was always willing to venture out and try something new. She starred in the first full-length motion picture, Queen Elizabeth, and that was in 1912. Not until she tried it were other people like Mary Pickford willing to make the transition.
That's the whole thing is, she did jump on. She's an early adopter. She
Exactly.
was willing to take risks.
Exactly.
And she had a lot to risk at that point, too, because she was world-renowned.
She was 67 years old
Right.
when she did this.
But
and then she went on to star in several other movies.
That was her persona. She wasn't going to let it go till her dying day.
She actually performed until the day before she died.
And so you essentially are capturing Sarah Bernhardt's life in 2 acts.
When I performed it at Maxime's in Chicago last fall, people came up to me after the performance and they said, I don't feel like I saw a show about Sarah Bernhardt. I felt like I was with Sarah Bernhardt.
This is a great chance to find out more about this iconic actress from the last century.